All right. Good morning, Spartans. Welcome back. It's Friday, October 14th. You guys know I told you this on Wednesday that I was not in the building today. I'm out of town. So obviously you're watching this to see what we have going on. Obviously you're in the video lecture. We're looking at the DBQ packet. You guys are assigned the introductory questions and document A. We still have the same essential question, which is, does the structure of American government live up to its ideals? On Wednesday, we talked about how, because of Citizens United, it's very clear that the more wealthy or the wealthiest Americans very much have the ability to have more say in American political affairs because they can contribute obviously more money than the average citizen. And if they can contribute more money than the average American citizen, then politicians may very well believe that they are more important than the average citizen because politicians are very much connected to or determined, not connected to or determined by, very much in need of money to get elected to run their campaigns. We're switching gears back to the Electoral College, and again, still the same concept here. Does American government live up to its ideals? You see the document that we're looking at. I did go and add in a blank Word document or a Google Doc rather for you to type your answers on. Again, you could just have a heading there for each page, document A, document B, and then type your answers to the question so I can see that they are being done. It's probably the most efficient way of doing it versus answering the questions and sending in pictures. All right. So from Wednesday, you're supposed to read this article and then answer the questions. And again, it's just some background questions. All right. And so we can kind of frame our mind about what we're going through. Question number one, why do you think delegates to the Constitutional Convention might have had a difficult time deciding how to choose the president and vice president of the United States? All right. You got to think back to American history here. The big question was for our founding fathers, who should lead the national government? Now, we had just thrown off the shackles of colonialism, right? We were a possession of the United Kingdom. We were taxed without representation. The British Parliament, the English king could do as they pleased with Americans. We weren't so confident in trying to come up with an executive leader, a president of the United States, because we were worried that whomever we chose, whatever the process, this person could potentially turn themselves into a tyrant. They could abuse their powers. All right. That's reason one. The second reason that the Constitutional Convention or the founders at the Constitutional Convention had an issue with trying to pick a president, trying to figure out how to pick a president, is that the United States was based on the whole concept of democracy in a time when most of the population wasn't very educated. So problem two with trying to figure out how to pick a president or vice president is who's intelligent enough to make that choice. Is the population widely illiterate, uneducated? Are they intelligent enough to pick the best candidate, best person to lead this country? They clearly thought not. Which brings us to the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a group of electors who the state picked, the state determined to be the most intelligent, most qualified people in determining who should be president of the United States. Question number two, how did the Electoral College help to overcome the delegates' concern about the uninformed voters? Here we go. The people who were going to be determined, or people who were going to be selected to choose the president of the United States and the vice president of the United States, would be those most qualified as determined by each state's legislative branch. The people in the state who have the most experience in the state, the most knowledge in the state, they would be the ones to determine who is and is not an elector. And the electors that would ultimately be chosen by the by the state would clearly be the most intelligent, most educated, and best fit to make that decision. Number 3, how many electors each state have, and how does this help the small states? Talked about this on Monday. Each state has a different number of electors. The equation is still the same for every state, but the number of electors is different. Every state gets 2 electors for their senators. Every state has 2. And every state gets an elector for each representative. Minnesota has 8 congressional representatives. We have 2 senators. Minnesota has 10 electoral votes. Some states have a larger population, thus they get more electoral votes because they have more representatives. Every state gets 2 senatorial representatives. Everyone gets a representative, an elector. Every state gets 2 electors for their senators. Every state gets an elector for each of their representatives. And again, how does that help the small states? They're given at least 3. They're given at least 3 electoral votes, regardless of the size. And most of the small states don't have very large populations. So in fact, their electoral representation weighs much more. And you'll see that as we go through these documents. The smaller states' electoral votes actually have much more weight, much more impact than the larger states do. Number 4, according to the timeline, when is the president of the United States actually chosen? Let's go back to this timeline here. You can see as it's shown, we vote in November, the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. The date changes, but the equation is still the same. First Tuesday after the first Monday in November. The president is actually determined when the Electoral College meets. And the Electoral College meets on the same day across the United States. It is the second Wednesday in December. The second Wednesday in November, that is when the Electoral College meets and casts their ballots. That is when the president is actually determined. Typically, as we've discussed and as you've read, the popular vote decides what the electors will do. For a long time, the electors, because the Constitution and our founders thought of it this way, the electors could cast their vote for anybody, regardless of who won the popular vote in that state. But since then, approximately 30 or so states have passed laws which have been upheld as being constitutional. They have passed laws that require the electors to vote the way the popular vote, vote the way of the outcome, the results of the popular vote in that state. It's called the Faithful Elector Law. Number 5, what happens if no one gets a majority of electoral votes? Right now, a majority of the electoral votes is 270. 435 members of the House of Representatives, 100 senators, that's 535, and then the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. gets 3 votes. So that is 538 votes. Half plus 1 is 270 votes. If there's not 270 votes cast for a presidential candidate, then the decision is made by the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives then on January 6th, will vote state by state, so 50 votes, one vote per state. The House of Representatives will decide who the President of the United States is, while the United States Senate will determine who the Vice President is. Definition of terms: direct popular vote. That is what the people decide. The people cast their ballots on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. That is the popular vote. The Electoral College is the group of electors, who determine the president. A slate, all right? A slate of electors is merely, each state has a slate of electors for each presidential candidate. A slate of electors is a group of electors. In most states, since we continue to run a 2-party system, the Democrats will have a slate of electors. The Republicans will have a slate of electors. If the Democrats win the state, then that group of electors meets on the second Wednesday of November. If the Republicans win, then it's their electors who meet on the second Wednesday in December to cast their ballot. right? Each party has their own slate of electors. Winner take all. Outside the state of Maine and Nebraska, the other 48 states are winner take all. If you win the popular vote in your state, even if it is by 1 or a million, it doesn't matter. If you win the popular vote in that state, you win all of the electoral votes. That is winner take all. And obviously a majority, the simplest way to define majority is 1 more than half. Document A. So we see an electoral map, or relatively recent electoral map. All right. Which 2 states have the most electoral votes? Obviously pretty straightforward here. California has 55. Texas has 38. Both California and Texas, as well as the other 48 states, get 2 votes for their senatorial membership, but the other electoral votes are based on their House of Representatives membership. California has a lot of population, thus they have a lot of representatives, thus their state is worth 55 votes. What is the fewest number of electoral votes of any state? Obviously, the answer is 3. All right. And that's because every state gets 1 vote for each representative, and every state has 1 representative and 2 votes for their senators, and every state has 2. Obviously, we find Minnesota on our map. We see that we have 10 electoral votes. 2 for our senators, 1 for each of our representatives. Number 4 asks you to draw a line across the center of the map horizontally and then 1 vertically. And it asks you if a candidate could win if she has no support from any one of the regions. So if we were to go, bring up the tools here, draw a line, go that way, let's go red. If we were to draw a line horizontally across the country and vertically across the country, what it's asking you is, could a candidate win if they don't get a vote from one of the quadrants? And the answer is yes. A candidate could, in theory, win the presidency. They could establish a majority. They could reach 270 electoral votes, even if one part of the country didn't vote for them. However, that would be almost impossible, because that would require them to win every single state in the other quadrants. So they'd have to win all of these, they'd have to win all of these, and they'd have to win all of these down here if they didn't win a single vote right here. Almost impossible. Can't happen. It could happen. It won't happen. Right? One of the points of the Electoral College is to make sure that we have candidates that secure votes from each part of the country. You got to win some states in the Northwest. Got to win some states in the Southwest. Got to win some states in the Southeast. Got to win some states in the Northeast. Almost impossible to win if you lose all of the states in one quadrant of the United States. Number 5, what is the smallest number of states a candidate could win and win the Electoral College? The answer to that is number 11. Sorry, the answer to that is number 11. The answer to that is 11 states. The fewest number of states that you would have to win to be president of the United States is 11. California, Texas, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York, Florida. All right, a couple more. Possible. Could a candidate do that? Very much so. Likely to happen? Not. Very unlikely. Very few presidents in recent years have been able to win California and Texas. California always votes Democrat. Texas largely votes Republican. All right. Again, point of the Electoral College, beyond ensuring that the right guy is chosen, beyond ensuring that qualified people are choosing the president of the United States, The Electoral College requires candidates to win states from across the country, not just in one region. And then number 6, how does this document help support abolishing or keeping the Electoral College? Well, that's going to be determined by you. Maybe you argue, to keep the Electoral College unchanged, because it has those protections from the wrong candidate being determined. Maybe you argue that this document argues to keep the Electoral College because it ensures that candidates win support from each part of the country and not just one or two. Perhaps you argue that this map supports getting rid of or modifying the Electoral College, because as we've seen in class on Wednesday, it allows all of these tiny states to have more power than the larger states. Maybe you argue to get rid of the Electoral College because, as the questions in this document show, technically you only need to win 11 of the 50 states. That's 20% to become president of the United States, even though it won't happen. All right. So you should have those answers down. You are looking at document B today and C, right? I know we don't have class on Monday, so I could probably assign you more documents. However, there's no way we can get through more than 2 documents at a time in class. I've tried this before. Document B, you are looking at election results from 1980 and 1992. Shows you the candidates, the 3 major candidates, shows you their popular votes and the electoral vote. Some questions to answer. Document C is some excerpts from speeches and or articles that were published recently. Again, there are some questions at the bottom that kind of help break it down for you. Still have the same essential question: does our government structure live up to its ideals? And our project, we haven't quite decided if we're going to do a paper or a presentation. Perhaps, since there's only 2 of us, I'll let you choose which one you want to do. The focus of our presentation our paper will be, should we keep, should we get rid of, or should we modify the Electoral College? So we can worry about that. We can worry about that next week when I am back. But for our class on Tuesday, I need you to go through and look at documents B and document C for class. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. Let me know if you have any questions. You can shoot me an email. I will be checking it from time to time. But B and C for Tuesday, and I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.